Alrighty, so now we're gonna get into spoilers for Doctor Strange. So if you have not seen Doctor Strange and you don't want to get spoiled, don't watch this video. I have a spoiler-free video up already, but we're gonna get into spoilers now. So final warning, spoilers. I was mentioning in my last review that this movie has some crazy set pieces. Basically, the movie starts out with the villain Caecilius breaking into a library to take a book, one of the books from the Ancient One. You know, as he's stealing the pages, the Ancient One catches up with him, and there's this crazy scene where they're fighting in London, and they're like messing with the buildings. They're messing with gravity. Buildings are shifting and bending. This shit was fucking crazy. There's about 2 or 3 more action scenes that happen just like that, where when Stephen Strange first goes to meet the Ancient One, he's, you know, trying to heal his hands because the nerves in his hands are damaged and he's not able to operate anymore. And he heard a story of someone who visited the Ancient One and was able to walk again even though they had a spinal injury. So he goes over there, and when she starts talking about, you know, mystic arts and stuff like that, you know, he thinks that she's full of shit, and she sends him like into a fucking like mind trip where he goes and visits other dimensions, other universes. He's explained what a multiverse is, and it is the trippiest shit I've ever seen. The guy's literally floating through space. He's busting into glass kaleidoscope fucking cubes and ending up in other dimensions. He's seeing giant monsters. He goes into a fucking universe where everything in the universe is hands, and when he starts looking at his own hands, hands are growing out of the ends of his fingers and hands are growing out of his body. It's so strange and weird and cool at the same time. I got a feel of like 2001 Space Odyssey at one point where he's just flying through like a wormhole or space or something. I don't know what the hell was happening, but man, the effects were amazing. Then later on in the movie, for those of you who are Doctor Strange fans, or you're not Doctor Strange fans, I should say, Doctor Strange has this ability where he's able to go into an astral projection version of himself, where basically he can be asleep or he just temporarily leaves his body and he's in what's called an astral plane, where it's pretty much the same world except he's kind of like a ghost almost. And there's a scene in the movie where he gets stabbed, you know, during a fight, and he's in a hospital, and while he's on the hospital bed getting operated on, he goes into his astral form and starts having an astral projection fight with someone else, where they're literally ghosts floating around fighting inside this hospital where no one can see them, yet they're interacting with things and people in the real world see shit moving. That was fucking amazing. Also, there's times where he can, as his astral self, get projected in the real world, and he's just like a floating upper body, and oh my god, it looks so amazing. There's so many times in this movie where it's just like, when you know sorcery shit is about to go down, you're just like, oh, let's see what they're gonna do. And for the most part, they do something different every time, but most of the time it's them bending a room, multiplying things in the room, shifting the gravity of a room, teleporting from one part of the world to the other. There's a cool scene where his cape of levitation is basically trying to protect him, because they explain earlier in the movie that, you know, not all magic is stuff that you could produce. Sometimes there's relics that have magic in them, and the relics normally choose, you know, who's worthy of, you know, having them. And the cape chooses him, and he starts fucking flying around. The cape is like coming off his body and fighting guys. It's fucking weird. Also, the main thing about this movie, and this is a major spoiler that unfortunately it got spoiled for me, and I think it got spoiled for a lot of people, but as some of you may know that have been watching all these Marvel movies, they've introduced since Phase 2 the concept of Infinity Stones, which is things that are going to be assembled throughout the rest of the movies to eventually lead us into the big, you know, Infinity War movie of Avengers, where they're going to finally take on Thanos. So in this movie, they revealed that the Eye of Agamotto is actually an Infinity Gem. They explain this right at the end of the movie, and it's clearly the Time Gem, because once he starts putting that thing on and opens the eye, he is able to rewind certain objects or the entire world around him. So he can like point at something, fucking he makes an apple decay and then come back. And the last set piece of the movie is he actually was able to rewind an entire city getting destroyed while fighting sorcerers. That scene is It's just, it made my brain itch, if that makes any sense. Also, the fight scene in the mirror dimension between him and Caecilius was ridiculous. That's the scene in the trailer where there's all the cubes and stuff moving around. Oh my god, man, that was just insane. So anyway, let me try to organize my thoughts here. I'm not a huge Doctor Strange fan. I knew very little about him going into the movie. I knew that he was Sorcerer Supreme, and I also know that he has the ability to go to other dimensions. Pretty much all I've read of Doctor Strange is whenever he appears in someone else's like comic book or things of that nature. But I never really had a good idea of what his powers actually are. In this movie, I felt like I have a better understanding of what his powers are because they explain, it's a combination of, hand movements, studying. Certain relics are required to do certain things. Like they explain how you're able to open portals with a certain item, and if you don't have that item, you can't open portals. If you don't have a certain thing, you can't fly. If you don't have a certain thing, you can't, they just basically explain, as best as they can what it is that they're doing. They explain what the mirror dimension is, which is basically a dimension where you can do whatever the hell you want without having effects on the natural world, or this is how they're able to have fight scenes in the middle of the street without anybody noticing. I thought that was explained pretty cool. They really brush over the multiverse, a few times in the movie, but they don't really give you a full sense of a multiverse other than other dimensions and other realities. And the main conflict in this movie, is that Caecilius has discovered a way to have a giant monster from a place called the Dark Dimension, that if he serves that monster, he can live forever. And that's what he's trying to do. And he reveals in the movie that that's how the Ancient One is able to live forever, because she made a pact with this monster. Well, not make it a pact, but she's able to draw energy from his dimension into herself in order to stay alive forever. Another thing that I think this movie did very well is, I was mentioning in my spoiler-free review, that they had a mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene. The mid-credit scene was kind of like, oh wow, that's kind of cool, while extending Doctor Strange's story a bit. It's basically him talking to Thor, and Thor is revealing that the reason why he's on Earth is he's trying to look for his father, Odin, because if you saw Thor the Dark World, you know that Odin is not, like at the end of the movie, he's missing. Loki kind of was pretending to be him. The scene was a little bit confusing because it made it sound like, I couldn't really catch it because it happened so fast, so either Thor and Loki are both looking for Odin, even though Loki knows what's already going on, or Thor is looking for Loki because he figured out he was alive, because Thor was under the impression that Loki died in the Dark World, so I don't know why he even mentioned Loki's name. So it looks like that scene in the mid-credit scene could be taking place after the events of Thor Ragnarok. I don't think they're actually, I don't know, unless they're just not going to explain it. But I thought it was kind of cool where Doctor Strange had to sit down with Thor, and he's like, oh yeah, I have to protect this planet, and you're from another realm, so what's your reason for being here? When Thor explains his reason, Doctor Strange is like, alright, I'll help you. And that was the mid-credit scene. The post-credit scene, what it did was it revealed that Mordor, who is Doctor Strange's sidekick the whole movie, at the end of the movie, he decided he doesn't want to be part of that whole mystic arts thing and, defending the Earth anymore, because he doesn't agree with the fact that the Ancient One was harnessing energy from a dark dimension, which they were told 100 times was forbidden, and he doesn't agree with the fact that Doctor Strange saved the world by tampering with time, which goes against natural law. So he's starting to see that, okay, sorcerers are doing whatever the fuck they want when they want to, and he's been told the whole time he's been serving the Ancient One that he has to follow these rules, because if you don't, it goes against natural law, but yet his heroes are doing it. So he leaves at the end of the movie. What the post-credit scene is revealing that, time has passed, and he understands now that there's just too many sorcerers, and he's essentially going around, he's on a mission now to go around and kill all the sorcerers that he knows of. At the end of the movie, he kills a guy who is revealed to be harnessing magic as well. So they set up Mordor as someone who you thought was going to be a good guy, and then turn him into a villain right at the end of the movie. So that could suggest that either there's going to be another Doctor Strange movie, or maybe Mordor is going to be showing up to be a villain for the Avengers later on. But I thought that was kind of cool because I don't think up until this point they haven't got a hero to make the full change into a villain. Like in Civil War, no one was really being the villain among the Avengers. They were just having a disagreement, but they were still fighting for both good ideas. Just the way they went about it wasn't the right way. So that was interesting as well. But there's a lot to talk about with this movie. They also reveal that the Sanctum Sanctorum in New York is just a little whiles away from the Avengers Tower. You see it in the background. There was a lot of nice little Easter eggs here. I only saw it one time, so I couldn't catch everything. Also, I was mentioning in my spoiler-free review that I didn't really like some of the comedy. Like, I felt like some of the comedy in the movie was a little ill-timed. One of the examples of this happening is when Doctor Strange is fighting Caecilius for the first time. When he starts to get the upper hand on Caecilius and the cape, helped him win the fight. When Caecilius is all tied up in this thing, it was a funny moment, just him there all tied up, which, okay, that was great. But then, like, Doctor Strange, like, continues to kind of not take the guy seriously and made some jokes. And I understand that's kind of how his character is. He's very cocky. But at the same time, Doctor Strange, up until this point in the movie, he witnessed Caecilius murder someone right in front of him. And this is the first time, I think, in the movie where Doctor Strange has seen someone get murdered in front of him. And he even snaps a scene afterwards where he had to kill one of the henchmen, because if not, he was going to die. So it's kind of like, alright, so you saw Caecilius kill someone. Then when you had him tied up, you were making jokes and making fun of him. Then you had to murder someone, and you all of a sudden got upset that you had to murder someone. But it's like you just made fun of a guy who was a murderer 10 minutes earlier. So I kind of felt like that didn't mesh too well together. I think he should have taken Caecilius a little bit more serious. Like, the way Doctor Strange's humor is, it's kind of like he's trying to be Tony Stark, but he's just not as witty. He's just kind of a dick. Like, Tony Stark is, like, witty. Like, he's like a witty jerk, but it comes off, like, clever. Where with Doctor Strange, he just sounds like an asshole. Like, I don't know. Like, the whole reason Doctor Strange got into the predicament that he's in is because he was fucking driving and not paying attention and got into a car accident, in his fucking nice-ass luxury vehicle with his nice-ass watch and, hands-free. I don't know how the fuck he got into an accident with a hands-free phone looking down. Like, also, there was a running joke with him that everybody kept referring to him as Mr., and he wanted everyone to refer to him as Doctor. I thought that was kind of funny, but it got to a point where I was like, wow, dude, are you really this upset that people keep calling you Mr. Strange when you're no longer a doctor anymore?
Now, Mr. Evil.
Dr. Evil. I didn't spend 6 years in evil medical school to be called Mr. Thank you very much.
So, but getting back to the whole Infinity Stone thing, so as far as we know, we now have 5 Infinity Stones that exist in the Marvel Universe, and we only need one more left to go to Infinity War. So I'm wondering where that next stone is going to pop up. One stone had popped up during Guardians of the Galaxy, so Guardians movie already had a stone. A Thor movie had a stone. The Avengers movie revealed the stone. The first Avenger, Captain America, revealed the stone. And Doctor Strange revealed the stone. I don't think they're going to reveal a stone again in another Guardians movie, so I wonder if the next stone's going to show up somehow in... I doubt it'll be Spider-Man. I don't know how they would fit a stone into Spider-Man when he's fighting the Vulture, but maybe in the new Black Panther movie, maybe that's where the next stone's gonna show up. But man, what a psychedelic movie this was, man! Like, holy shit! There was a part in the movie where when they're in the mirror dimension and they're talking, they're floating on a platform that looks like some kind of like Celtic symbol or something, and while they're talking in the background, there's buildings that are like cut in a certain way that they look like flowers pulsating and shit. Like, oh my god, I can't imagine. Like, I've never done hallucinogenic drugs before. I mean, I can only imagine that if you're someone who was heavily under the influence when you went to go see that movie, you probably were freaking the fuck out, because there were so many like just mind-blowing scenes in that movie. Just, man, there was so much going on in that fucking movie. Oh my god. It was a good time, man. Like I said, it's not my favorite Marvel movie, but it was still a really good time. Yeah, let me know what you guys think, man. What do you think is gonna be next for Doctor Strange? How do you like how the universe Phase 3 so far has been looking pretty good? We've had Civil War, and now we've had Doctor Strange, so the Phase 3 is off to a pretty interesting start.